Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. Well, from my lips to God's ears, I'm so glad to have you here on the edge. Sara Lypps of Fallbrook. Fallbrook's right up the road from me, Brains. And let me tell you, this woman here is about dollars and cents, because if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And we need to be financially literate, especially women. I have to say, especially women. You know, men know how to do it. They're hunters and gatherers. They know how to make $1 out of 15 cents. But women, for some reason, it seems like you're afraid of money. And you better get with the program, because we're about to take over the planet. You know, and so Absolutely. You need to know how to make it. You know how to invest it, how to spend it, how to secure it, all of that. So we're going to try to get that in a 30-minute conversation. But I sent Sara a little gift. And y'all know, anybody that's been on my show, I send you a love offering every single time because I appreciate you. And I sent her some beautiful blessing oils. And tell me your ritual that you do with it. Share that with my brains.
Oh, absolutely. Happy to, April. Thank you so much for having me here this morning. So yes, I have a ritual that I do daily, at least once a day. And I've been able to incorporate my little blessing ritual with the beautiful personal scent that you made for me. And not knowing me really well, I don't really do scents that are super floral and sweet. So you kind of gave me just the right combination of woodsy and a little floral. And so I've taken your essential oil and incorporated that into my morning blessing ritual. And I bless myself below both of my earlobes and just say, dear God, please, allow me to hear your word today, and put it on my throat. Please allow me to speak your words, as well as God, protect the thoughts that come into my mind. Let them be from you. And I also bless my heart, guard my heart. And I put it on the back of my neck because I know that God's got my back.
Did you see that, Brains? You better try to get with the program. We're going to get it with the program. Thank you so much for that, because that makes me feel good. That might be something that I incorporate in my daily ritual.
Absolutely.
So, Sara Lypps, girl, tell me your story, and then tell us how you got into finance, of all things in the world.
Okay, well, how much time do we have? No, I will, I'll share with you, with the audience, and it's basically like we're just having a conversation here, but whoever's listening, I hope that there's, parts of this that you can definitely relate to. So the biggest part of my story is, unfortunately, 10 years ago, this past January, I lost my husband. We were together for 21 years. We were, high school sweethearts, happily married, had 4 children. And he left to go play golf with some friends. He was at a charity golf tournament, and unfortunately got thrown off the golf cart, landed on his head, and never regained consciousness. So wow. At 38 years old, that was not part of my long-term, my personal nor my financial plan to, be left to raise 4 small children alone. And my children at the time were 13, 11, 4, and 2. So I had two babies, an adolescent, a just, teen. And so adjusting to, a new normal for me was big. And I didn't know how that was going to happen. I'll come right out and say that I was mad at God for, probably a good solid year. It took me a while.
Like a year. Some people is still upset. And again, just out a fluke accident, just out on afternoon exercise, recreation.
Yeah, just out having fun.
And I never hear that. Now, you see they're kind of rickety or whatever, but I just really, when you told me that, it was like, wow. And I know you were devastated. I'm devastated just hearing about it. And I can hear the tenderness in your voice.
And, you know, as you get to know me better through, you know, our conversation here, I've always been a multitasker. I was a waitress, a cocktail waitress. I was a spokesmodel for various companies and programs over the years. I can multitask. The day I lost my husband, and throughout that first year, I couldn't even chew gum and tie my shoes in the same sentence. It was just too overwhelming. And so where do you start? You're in the survival mode. You're just doing the best to provide for your family, to pick up the pieces. And, you know, quite honestly, my husband and I, we were not prepared financially. We had a small construction business. He was a granite slab contractor, and I supported him behind the scenes with his business, with sales and marketing, and even picked up the granite material. I did all the bids. I, you know, did all that busy work so he could just focus on creating this, you know, these beautiful works of art from Mother Nature. And so I said, okay, what do I do with where I am right now? Well, fortunately, I was called, and I believe that, you know, God was like, he just put this burning sense in my belly about, let's see, 6-8 years before. So when my older two children, who are now 21 and 23, when they were 2 and 4, I felt led to go back to school and to work on my master's in business. And at the time, it wasn't something that I needed to have. It wasn't going to promote me in, you know, our little mom and pop business, but it was something that I was led to do to really better myself as, you know, a person, to work on my identity. I knew who I was as a wife. I knew who I was as a mother. I knew where my place was in the business, but I felt like I had really lost my identity at that point in my life. And
absolutely.
So the one thing that I knew how to really better myself was through education. And it doesn't matter how old you are, where you come from, we never stop learning. And so I felt compelled to take that time, which may have been a little bit selfish, but my family supported me. And so I took 3 years out of my life. I went back to school. And
now this was post your husband's passing, or pre?
This was pre.
Okay. Yes. All right. So great. So you did this, and then of course it couldn't do anything but enhance the work that you were currently doing with the business. Now let me ask you, you had a petite business. With that, did you have the things in place? I mean, you know, when you're running your own business, there's medical insurance. That's you, or, you know, there's workers' compensation insurance for any people that are working with your husband or even for your husband. There is, you know, personal liability. All of these financial components, did you have those streamlined in place, or were they kind of hit and miss along in the business? Because sometimes it's hard to cover all of those expenses.
Absolutely. And that's a great question. So I think there was at one point we had maybe 5 employees, which, you know, you have to kind of get to that sweet spot where having a couple guys is more beneficial, but then the larger you grow, unless you really scale your business, mm-hmm. you're just babysitting. There's more things for you to manage than you really being able to be productive.
Right.
For example, you know, we had a project where we sent out a crew that we had just hired to go set some tile. And my husband was, you know, doing granite on another project, and we go to check on to see how things are going. Well, the quality of that just wasn't up to par. Patient is everything. But as far as having, so the workers' comp and liability and those other types of insurances, yes, we did. But as a small business, it's a huge burden on your monthly finances, because there's times there's just simply not enough coming in. There's more going out.
And imagine that client, you know, suing you if your husband didn't go in and rework it. then you've got
absolutely,
got
absolutely,
a liability there against you. So moving forward, you had this degree, and now you are a single mother, and you are still a hard charger, and those kids got to be fed and clothed and go to school. You got to keep a roof over their head. How did you jumpstart into the world of finance, and how did insurance and financial planning find you?
Okay, thank you. That's a great segue into kind of bringing everything full circle. So when I had gotten my master's in business, and again, my husband was still living. At that time, we had 2 children. I was really looking for something where I could be close to home, bring in significant income to the family without, having to be on the road 3 or 4 hours a day commuting, with corporate America. An MBA is a very well-rounded degree. I could have got hired anywhere, but my top priority was taking care of my children. So after I had graduated with my master's in business, I researched what would be a good fit for me, where I could continue to be there for my kids, take them to school and dance and karate and soccer and the things that they were in, but also support the family monetarily. And so immediately after I got my master's, I got a broker's license in real estate, as well as my insurance license, became a notary public, and was kind of a little one-stop shop. So fast forward a few years later, and although the business that I had started, and I was still supporting my husband with his business behind the scenes, the business was doing quite well, but I kind of felt my maternal clock ticking. And I didn't want to, fast forward 20, 30 years later and, not have added to my family. So we decided to have baby number 3. And God said, well, he needs a playmate too. So 23 months later, he had
you and your man needed a playmate. That baby didn't need no playmate.
but I couldn't imagine my life without, any of my children. But my youngest is so much like his dad, and it's so fun to watch.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Him in his life. But anyhow, so I had those skills, but then having baby number 3, baby number 4, very close together. And then again, 2 years later and some change is when, my husband unfortunately passed. And so you're absolutely right. Not just looking at the circumstances, how do I juggle day-to-day activities, just getting the kids to school, picking them up, getting them to their, extracurricular activities, dance and sports and what have you. But how do you pay the bills? And taking care of a family, for those of you, out there that have children, even if you don't, maybe you're, helping to raise your grandchildren, you have your fur family, we've got responsibilities.
That's right.
So really, putting things into perspective. And so I had to take a hard look. As much as I knew that, God has given me something beautiful between my ears to use for the greater good. But at that time, what is my best bet to be able to provide for my family? And so I put my pride aside, and I got my contractor's license, and I continued the granite slab business for several years while I was growing my financial advising business, because that's what put all the pieces together, where I could use all of the skills that I had acquired over my lifetime as an adult to really be able to help other people. And so I did the granite business. It wasn't my favorite thing to do. I was very good at it, but I didn't love it. And there were days where I was in tears going to a project that I just said, God, it's in my heart and I'm capable of doing this, but it's not what I love. It was my husband's dream, not mine.
Sorry, but what was important too, and that I want our brains to listen to, is that you had multiple streams of revenue.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
You were building a business, you had a granite business, and you had other skills, and you're pulling that together, because so many people, they get so embedded in, okay, they want to be an entrepreneur, this big $25 word. Okay. I don't really like to call myself an entrepreneur. Okay. Because there's a lot to that. You got to build the business. You got to get people to buy into the business. You got to pay for the business. You got liability on the business, and then you got to start this machine all over again every single day. Oh, I don't want to answer to a boss. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Well, you know what? Then you're not in business. You're in bullshit, because you can't do this. You have to have multiple revenue streams. So you're this smart woman with this degree, with this granted business, and you're building this financial machine in the background. But while you're doing that, what are you looking at also? The lesson that you learned from losing your husband so spontaneously. Are you thinking in the background, how am I going to provide for these children long term? Heaven forbid something happened to me. Are you building that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, and that's a great point. I think about that every day. And that was a huge pressure, that if something were to happen to me, what would happen to my kids? Mm-hmm. Now, at that point, my oldest was 13.
Wow.
He would help around the property. At this time, we lived on 9 acres. We were out in the country. We were fortunate enough. We had our granite shop was a 1,200 square foot shop on the property. So it made sense when the kids were younger. But certainly, a 13-year-old is not a man, and I couldn't put the responsibilities. So at that time, was just be a kid, go play, play your sports, be with your friends. But I never expected him to fill those shoes. So
how did that work on you internally as a woman? Were you on automatic?
I was on autopilot for years.
Yeah, there was no time for you to kind of reset, yourself.
No.
Because you had so much to think about.
That first year, so besides, I told you I was just, completely numb and had just kind of done this to God, like just here, talk to the hands, go away. Where are you? And so my kids, I kept them so busy, they didn't have time to be sad. It was 3 weeks after they lost their dad.
What kept you, outside of that, what did you, when you finally broke through after that year, what did you do? What was that aha moment that you just said, you know what? I need a break. I need to do something for me.
I decided, instead of pushing God away, to build an alliance with him.
All right now.
And that fear that kept me awake night after night, not knowing how food was going to be on the table, how projects were going to get done, how everything was going to happen, I just decided to just have blind faith and to believe in something that I couldn't see. Right. Is really the true definition of faith. It's not, we see something, then we believe it. If you truly have faith in whatever religion, whatever your background in, and I'm not judging if you're not Christian, if you're Muslim, whatever your background, but believing in something that's bigger than us.
That's right.
And so I just I'd raise my hand even in the middle of the night. I'd wake up for hours and cold sweat and not be able to go back to sleep, wondering how all of the pieces were going to come together. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to truly build an alliance with my God.
All the time about finance and money. And what they don't seem to get is that money is a vehicle of exchange.
Absolutely.
It is an exchange mechanism, brains. It is not a human being. It doesn't have a heart. It doesn't have a voice. It doesn't have a spirit. It only has the power that you give it. But you need to be smart with money. Okay, it's just like your car is a vehicle. You need to be careful how you move it. An airplane is a vehicle. You need to be careful how you move it. Well, money. And you are into money management. Now, we want to talk a little bit about financial literacy. We could do 3 shows on that. I learned how to make $1 out of 15 cents when I was 5 years old. I have been an entrepreneur since I was 5 years old, literally. Always had multiple revenue streams. I could tell you about it, crack you up. My mother always had this philosophy about money. She would put her money in her wallet. All of it couldn't be crinkled up on the ends. All of it had to be going the same direction. All the heads on top. And she would always say, if you treat your money good, your money will be good to you. Now, talk to us a little bit about financial what they consider literacy. And literacy is the language, the understanding, the conversation, and the education around money. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely. So again, continuing on with my story was how do I take my experience, my knowledge, my skill set, and do the greatest good? So I decided to really specialize in financial education for women. So we'll talk about that a little bit, as well as I'm creating financial literacy programs for young people, adolescents, teens, as well as young adults. But the financial literacy for women, that's really where it started for me, where I could put my experience as well as my passion to do the greatest good. And it all boils around education. If you don't know where you are, just like if you put in an address in your phone, GPS can't tell you where to go.
All right.
If you don't know where you are. So that's the first thing that I spend time on with, my financial clients. Again, the majority of them are women, because that's just where I've, found where I can do the greatest good. So you have to know where you are. So understanding and no judgment, whatever type of retirement accounts that you have, maybe you don't have those set up properly, you have an estate plan, you don't have an estate plan. None of that matters unless you know where you are. You have to know where you are. So that's the first thing, is really diving deep into what's your current situation. And then from there, I, just guide them. So first educate and then empower them. So whether you've been married for 30 or 40 years, whether you're in a first marriage, whether it's a second marriage, finances, it's a very delicate topic. So we have to be careful, how we handle that. So, depending on the situation, there's not a one size fits all. Everybody is different, but you got to know where you are.
But let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Don't you think that everyone should have their own nest egg? Because God blesses the child has got his own.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Women, you get caught up in this. I'm a kept woman and I don't have to work. Well, good, because you're going to be jacked up if he decides to step out, or if something happens to him, or what if something happens and the person is disabled? They don't take that into consideration, Sarah.
Absolutely.
I'm only looking at the life insurance in case my husband dies. Baby, you can get somebody that can have a terminal illness and they hang around for 10 or 15 years and completely suck you dry.
Absolutely. And I mean, I could spend 10 episodes just giving you stories of these types of things. But I had a client a few years ago, and she was in her early 70s. Her husband was almost 80. And I mean, for me, I can work with anyone, all walks of life, but that most of my clients are between like 50 and 65, give or take on either end. So, I meet with them and just going over everything. They did have, some stuff in the market. They had some property that wasn't income earning, some different things. And so just starting again with where are you, which an important piece of knowing where you are is kind of just creating a little budget. And it doesn't mean that we're even talking about, big pictures, but just again, where are you? What do you have coming in? What are the assets that you have? How are they titled? And so anyway, this couple, and I'm just going to give you just a quick example. And so the money that she had coming in from Social Security, that was her money that she went to the nail salon and she got her hair done and she paid for their timeshare and little things. His portion of the budget, what was coming in and out, and again, they owned like 4 different properties. They had, rental, lot of moving parts. So his part of the budget was like a 3-page spreadsheet. And so my question to her was, if something happens to him, what happens to you? Mm-hmm. She had no idea everything that was happening. She would completely fall apart. And so that to me was just a confirmation that I am heading in the right direction, that this financial literacy is so, so, so important. Mm-hmm. No matter, if you're 8 years old. I mean, I do this stuff on, my youngest is 12.
Oh, yeah.
I teach the stuff to him, and I'll give you examples of that later. But whether you're 12 or you're 102, there's so much that you need to just be aware of.
Right.
And it's not that you can fix what's broken overnight, but again, going back to that GPS analogy, you've got to know where you are in order to get where you need to go.
And also, it's understanding the terms. You know, I'm a big investor. Again, I've always been an investor. I love it. You know, I like to watch my money grow. Sometimes you lose. Okay, but you got to take a risk. But understanding financial currency, understanding what interest rates are, understanding what the cost of doing business, because business, you got to pay one way or another.
Oh, absolutely.
Knowing your tax rate, knowing how to diversify your portfolio, having insurance to protect your assets, all of this is financial literacy. Teaching your children the difference between owning a property, renting a property, what it is to have a mortgage. It's having those conversations. So again, knowing where you are. I used to work at the gas and electric company, and it was so sad. Military spouses would call me on the phone. Their electricity is about to be turned off. They didn't even know how to write a check, Sarah. Yeah. They didn't know the account number. They didn't know. All they knew is how to go to the ombudsman to get a message to your husband to try to get more on your allotment. But they don't know how to manage their money. Mm-hmm. And that is, you know, it is a skill. And they need great people like you.
Comprehensive planning. So comprehensive planning is not just looking at, okay, well, we've got a slice of apple pie over here and a slice of, you know, pumpkin and cherry. We're looking at the whole pie. So we're looking at your investments, the types of insurance that you have. Do you have a living trust? Your home. So, you know, the majority of my clients are homeowners, and that's oftentimes their biggest asset. So bringing in this, you know, couple that I mentioned earlier where, you know, they weren't prepared. She had her little list. He had his extensive list. So I met with them several. Now, I'm not making any money on them getting their stucco repaired, but this is what we need to know. If we're going to have a conversation, we need to know what we're dealing with. So your stucco's peeling. You've got some cracks that needs to be repaired. How much is that going to cost? Okay, $12,000, $15,000. Where does that money come from? Again, they're in their 70s and 80s. Does it come from your savings? Are you going to cash out one of your investments? You know, where does that money come from? Right. So it's not just, you know, what you have in the bank, what you have, you know, in your investment portfolio. Again, it's looking at the whole picture. And that's one thing, and not to point in the, you know, any fingers at any advisors out there, but, you know, a lot of times if, you know, if you're just to walk into an advisory firm or into a bank and you tell them, you know, you've got 250,000 or 500,000, whatever the number is, 10,000, doesn't matter. Where are we going to put that money? Okay, well, you know, usually it's based on your age. This is what's happening in the market. Let's put it here. Are they going to ask those clients the condition of their home, that they have, you know, deferred maintenance that could be tens of thousands, you know, a lot of money. Another thing is, you know, I get to know them very well. And again, you know, where you are determines where you're going. I ask about their pets. How many advisors are going to ask about their pets? This particular couple, they had 4 dogs. And so I asked them, are any of your pets special needs? Yes, one of their dogs had diabetes. Well, how much does that medicine cost? $150 a month. So these are things that you need to know. Right. When not only, you know, you're looking at your portfolio, but what amount of money do you have left over? What's your little nest egg that you have to work with?
And so, you know, I don't want to interject in there because there's a couple things I don't want to miss. But when you talk about your, you know, your portfolio, you mentioned your trust.
Yes.
Brains, please, please, please get your paperwork in order. Get your business in order. Okay. You have worked your entire life for your piece of property, which is your biggest asset that, you know, you're going to leave to your children? And do you want them sitting there after the funeral trying to divide up what's left of you? It takes all of $700-800, a great financial planner, and someone to look at your assets to write out what you want people to have, who is going to be the executor, and if you are generating any revenue from your investments, where's that going? Who's going to be the beneficiary? This is key. And I don't know why people, you know, they waste time. You're dead and gone. Believe me, your acreage is not going to fit in your coffin. And you are going to just make a nightmare. You're going to make your kids hate one another. You're going to give 30% of it in probate to the attorney off the top, okay? Because they don't do this pro bono because you're cute. So what is the problem? I don't understand what the problem is. You invest money in everything else, motorhomes, vacations. Do your due diligence. Am I preaching to the choir, Sarah?
No, not at all. I mean, just I'm a numbers girl. I mean, I eat numbers for breakfast. But the fact is 2/3 of Americans do not have even a simple will, let alone any type of a living trust. So
you can get a will at the stationery store, at the Walmart, and go and have it notarized. I don't understand what people are holding back for. What are you afraid of? No, I think it is they're afraid of talking about death and immortality.
It's very personal, yes.
And what you have to understand is, look at Sarah's example. She wasn't having that conversation. The husband was out playing golf of all things. And look how her life was turned upside down. Oh, I'm sorry, but I just have to get on folks about that because I just don't get it. I just don't get it. It's like they don't care. What are you afraid of? You know, you got to feel the fear and do it anyway. These are revenue generating assets, your car, your boat, your house, your life insurance policy, your investments, all of these things, they're critical and people just don't do it. And these are what's called assets. These are things that generate, income and revenue. This is the vehicle of exchange we're talking about. This is what keeping the machine running, right, Sarah?
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter your circumstance. Yes, you know, if you have significant assets, if you have over 100,000 in assets, you absolutely should get a trust done. But even if you don't have any assets, you still have, you know, you need to get a will done. You need to do advanced care directive. You know, for me, that was a big thing because I was thinking, well, if something happens to me, what happens to my children? Who's going to raise my children?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So whether, you know, you have a little assets, you have, you know, several assets, you have a lot of assets. I mean, I you know, spoke with a couple of years ago, between their home and what they had in the stock market, you know, probably $1.5 million in assets, no children. They had no will, no living trust. And so what's going to happen in that case, especially if they were both to die together, is the state is going to get all the money and then they're going to determine what happens to it. By me having uncomfortable conversations with them, we're able, through getting the trust completed, you know, spell out who they want their assets to go to. Absolutely. Which, you know, their nieces and nephews and their, you know, their children, they wanted to make sure because their siblings were taken care of, they're older, but the nieces and nephews were younger. They wanted to set aside money for them to be able to go to college. Mm-hmm. Also, they're huge animal lovers. So, you know, whatever it is that speaks to your heart, if it's art, if it's education, it's animals, it's the homeless.
Nonprofits are big. But one other thing that we didn't talk about, and I'm going to bring it up, the stepchildren. Oh, the stepchildren. Okay. Oh,
yes. And when it comes to money, everybody wants to have their hand in the cookie jar and things get ugly.
And, you know, and they feel that they are entitled. The biological children or the children that you have with the current spouse, they're null and void. They are going to be fighting Don't even put yourself through that, brains. Why do you want to do that? Love your children. If you want to give them $100, if you want to give them $100,000, don't leave that to the surviving spouse. Don't leave that to the children. Don't leave that to the attorney. Go ahead and figure that out. You know, and like you said, endowments and donations are huge. I worked for several big, high-profile nonprofit organizations, and that was the greatest gift. Is that when someone passed away, they left $10,000 to a particular organization or to animal rights or to a certain cause. Nonprofits really need that support. And you don't see this generation doing it as much. You know, when it was, I don't know, people that grew up in the 30s and the 40s, the 50s, they do it a lot more. You work with a nonprofit program though, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah, this particular program, so I'm not sure, like as far as timing, if we want to end with that, but I can go into it a little bit if you.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about, you know, about the nonprofit.
Okay, so this particular program, it's called the PAP, which stands for Premier Alternative Program. And the nonprofit that makes this program even possible is the Foundation to Restore Social Security and Medicare. So we're kind of going off in a little different direction as far, you know, talking to state planning and trust and what have you.
Well, you can't plan any of that if your medical is not right.
Yeah, exactly.
And long-term care too. You know, if that's not right, all that other stuff is null and void.
Exactly. So, and what's so amazing about this program, April, that I love, this company, so it's been in research and development for almost 7 years now. So this isn't something that they just pulled out of a Cracker Jacks box. There's 3 different patents on this particular program. It was developed by PhDs and attorneys and economists. Everything is IRS and ERISA compliance, but this program, it's going to bless tens and hundreds of thousands of families across America. It's available in all 50 states. And basically what it does in a nutshell is you have a small, medium, large company. In order to qualify, you do need at least 5 full-time employees that are on a group healthcare plan. And what the nonprofit is able to provide for these workers and their families at no out-of-pocket cost to them is they get $16,000 every year in benefits that are available to reimburse them for their high deductibles and their co-pays that they have through their major medical plans. And this is huge. You know, the average Americans, and we know across the nation, minimum wage is simply not keeping up with the cost of inflation, the cost of living. I mean, even for, you know, a single person, let alone a small family, to have a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, there's no money left for anything else. And so this program, again, it's, you know, $16,000 a year that's available to each and every individual, every family that qualifies. It's an employer-sponsored program. So we go in, we help them to set it up, and we're able to help that employer that, you know, they want to keep their employees happy, right? They want to do everything they can. So we're able to help that employer be the superheroes for their hardworking employees. And again, it's no out-of-pocket costs to the employee. And we can also save the employer about $500 on average per employee and about $1,500 per employee by the second year. So if you've got a company with 100 employees, you know, saving $500 per employee, that's $50,000 a year.
$50,000 a year.
You can use that as bonuses. You can do a nice Christmas party now that hopefully, you know, we're able to come together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing that I miss. And if I was, I mean, I know you only live like an hour from me.
I know.
I'm like a touchy-feely. I want to, I like to hug and love on people.
I got my shots. I'm coming up there. Give me some fresh eggs and some oranges. You guys have the best on the planet up there. But that's important. And we're going to definitely give the link to contact you for employers to take a look at that.
Absolutely.
If you have an employee advisory board, this is how you get bonuses. This is how
Yeah.
you get, kudos on your evaluation. It is being a progressive thinker. Take this
Absolutely.
idea, say, hey, let's talk about this, see where you are, and the company's going to go, oh, wow, we got a bright brain.
Yeah, and it's a no-brainer, April, not to, play it, but it is really a no-brainer. And what the really cool thing, so it's a win for the employee, it's a win for the employer, because the employee is getting these benefits at no cost to them. We're helping the employer save money. Whatever is left over at the end of the year before the program resets, out of that 16,000, whatever that employee doesn't use goes directly as enhanced retirement benefits into their own personal Medicare and Social Security accounts.
See?
And I'm hoping if I have some pull to help them also create something that would be more like a personal 401k or similar, where we could have a portion of that money go into that employee's retirement benefits account.
And that's another thing, Brains, that's free money.
It's free money.
You're not seeing
I can't say free, but it's.
Well, no, I'm talking about your 401k.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So many people go into a company and they don't do it. Understand, I'm not the financial advisor. That's, that's Sarah here. That's her PB&J. But that's free money. You go in there and they're going to match it. That money is taken out pre-tax before they tax you. So there's a tax benefit on that. It's going to continue to grow. You need to look at it. You need to talk to people like Sarah to toss it around and say, hey, I need to diversify. Maybe I need some stocks. Maybe I need some bonds, commodities, whatever the situation is, take a look at it. Plus, it's a lot of fun. It's financial education. I teach my kids and quiz my kids all the time on how to make $1 out of 15 cents. I'm from South Central LA, called The Hustle. This is a legitimate hustle that's going to make them money long term. How to be able to flip it. What is the financial literacy programs that you offer for children or that you're trying to develop to educate young brains?
Okay, well, thank you, April. So yes, this is a passion of mine. And again, a calling that really everything starts with the young brains, whether, the little guys, even say I was, helping out at one of my older kids' soccer games, and we had a snack shack. And so I was collecting the money at the snack shack. Well, they could have just come up to me on the side and said, hey, Mom, I want a granola bar or a Gatorade. So I, gave them some money out of my purse, told them to get in line like everybody else, right? This is what can I, get a Gatorade and a granola bar, a bag of chips or whatever. Just to understand that money is an exchange, okay? And this is, I'm talking, they were preschool and kindergarten. We need to start with our kids younger. When I was in high school, thankfully, I always excelled in math and science, but I didn't even get taught how to balance a checkbook.
Yeah.
Those were only classes for the kids that didn't do so well in math that maybe would teach them little tiny life skills. So there's a huge gap, and I'll quote, this is one of my dear friends, Jake Owens, who just relocated to Seattle. But providing that gap between what school teaches and life expects.
Right.
We're simply not, we're not prepared. Our young people aren't prepared to understand how finance and all the moving parts, and it really affects everything in our life.
Absolutely.
And so I'm developing 3 separate programs all about financial literacy. The first one is for the adolescents, so 7 to 12 years old, for teenagers, 13 to 17, and for young adults, 18 to 24. And with COVID, things that have definitely been different, but 2 weeks ago, I was able to do my first live training with a group of high school seniors.
Wow.
And I was so impressed with these young ladies on the types of questions that they, asked. They were very engaging. I gave them a lot more information than, I think that they were expecting. But one of the homework assignments that I gave them was to simply go get a high school checking account. It's free. Doesn't matter if you're getting money from a little part-time job or from birthdays or Christmas or, honor roll, what have you. To be responsible, to just see here's what's coming in and what's going out. And that basis, it's the same thing for you and I now. You know, we have to know where we are.
But you know what? And I want to share this. Minority communities, Black and browns, you better turn up your ears. Okay, because don't think that it doesn't impact you. Don't think that I'll say it, every white person is rich. No, a lot of them have had generational wealth because their parents have planned for them and have been able to give land, property, assets, insurance. They've planned for their future. Planning starts with a thought and an idea.
Yes.
You know, you have to do it. I worked out in the field. It was one of my dreams to work in the field with the migrant workers out in Imperial Valley. Girl, that was some tough work, okay? And I was talking to them. We were picking onions that day, of all things. It was horrible. But they were saying to me that their children don't want to work the fields. And they own this land, okay? They weren't just out there, you know, just willy-nilly. They own this land. Their children don't want to do that. You don't understand the generational wealth that is still here. And you have to start somewhere. And you get a checking account, you get a part-time job, you save 25% of it. If you're staying at home, you know, you don't have to worry about that. COVID has kept you in the house. Become an entrepreneur. Start thinking with great ideas, using the internet, going and taking classes with great people like Sara. Learn the terms, learn the terminology, what to do, how to do it, and you will find yourself being wealthy. I mean, look at some of the people that didn't graduate from college. Sean P. Diddy Combs, he's got money. Bill Gates, he's got money. You know, these people are billionaires. It has to start somewhere, and it starts with that term, literacy, understanding the conversation of what it is, and understanding that money is a vehicle of exchange that needs to be exchanged. Sara, you have been just a wealth of knowledge and information, and I appreciate you and value you so much. You are so smart. I'm coming up to Fallbrook. I'm coming soon. Okay, I can't wait. I'm not afraid. I got my shots.
Okay, you come up and I'm
gonna come up and we're
have
gonna
some
talk.
lunch and
We're gonna talk because we're gonna get some people.
We're gonna hug.
We're gonna hug and we're gonna get some young people excited because I've got a dream. I'm gonna start an all-girls chess team. And with that chess team, a part of that strategy is going to be financial literacy. And I'm going to be counting on you to get into their head and to get in their brains.
Oh, absolutely. It would be my honor, April.
So tell my brains how to get in contact with you. I want them to do some work with you. I want them to check out your online program. Tell us what you got to offer, baby.
Okay. So the financial literacy, that's something, again, that's, been near and dear to me. I've got the program pretty much created. That's the middle of the road. I'm just going to slightly simplify it for the younger kids and, make it a little more challenging for the young adults. But I've got that pretty well locked in. So you can reach out, to me and get more information about that, as well as the PAP, the Premier Alternative Program. And again, this is something, as long as you're on a group healthcare program in a company that has 5 or more employees, talk to your HR, talk to your upper management to see how you can get on this program. And again, it's at zero net cost to you and actually can help them save some money, and you get those enhanced retirement benefits. I'd also like to offer maybe the first 3 people that reach out, just as a side note. And I'm licensed in the state of California as a financial advisor, but you can reach out to me, and the first 3 people, I'll give you a complimentary, say 20, 30-minute strategy session, just so we can, kind of see where you are now. You can pick my brain. I can give you some pointers, and how to guide you in the right direction. So, where I am is, it's my passion and my purpose to help to educate you, especially you ladies, but to help educate you in your finances, encourage you as well as empower you. Because when you know where you are and you understand, and you have someone that's having a conversation with you and not over you or at you, right, then you're truly empowered, because it's up to you to take control. Nobody else can do it for you.
They can't. Nobody can take the wheel. Like you say, Jesus, take the wheel. And I'm so glad.
Take the wheel.
Yes, and I'm so glad that he's driving your car and not a golf cart.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Amen, sister.
But I'm so glad that you are here to, to share this information, because it's super powerful. And again, Brains, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. Anything, you could slip on a banana peel. You never know what's going to happen. So,
you never know. So I just want to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just when you're ready, I'll share my email. You can also find me on Facebook, and I don't know if it's okay to share my phone number, whatever you're comfortable with. But just know, wherever, some people don't do social media, others are more phone people. Some that don't have computers.
Out all over the planet. We're going to put you out, because that's what we do here on The Edge. We make sure that people got the information. We don't just have you here because you're cute.
Well, thank you. And I wasn't sure when I asked Miss April today. I didn't know if it was just going to be my voice and my picture, or if I had to look pretty. So
the whole Monty, honey. We want it all, because I want people to resonate with my guests. That's what's important. I want them to see that this is a real human being, that this is just not somebody that's talking, that they have real life experiences. This is how we weave in and out of the conversation, because again, you have to be relatable. That's what people are investing in, is emotional intelligence, and they're building their relationship capital here on The Edge.
Absolutely. And bottom line, it doesn't matter where you are. There's no shame if you haven't gotten your will, your estate plan, if you don't know what's coming in and out of your finances. There's no shame in that. But girls, you've got to take responsibility. As uncomfortable as it is, have those conversations and come up with an action plan. And it's not, here's 50 things that you have to do tomorrow. It's, let's do 1, 2, 3, then we do the next step. And then within a few weeks or a few months, you have a complete comprehensive plan that protects you for assets. Too.
I think that they think that working with the financial planner is this absorbent cost.
No.
But you know what? I'll tell you something. If you work with the right one and you making money, they making money, all of that is just going to roll out of your assets. It's going to be transparent. You ain't even going to feel it, right?
Absolutely.
And I've worked with some great ones, and this is one of them right here. So thank you so much for being here on The Edge, baby doll. Yes. And we are going to come back and have additional conversations, because I'd like to have a conversation actually with you, me, and some youth, just to kind of what they know and what they don't know.
So you want me to give you my contact information real quick?
Yeah, give me your email information, and I'm going to also put it down at the bottom.
Okay, so the best email for me is my last name, Lypps. It's LYPPS financial @gmail.com. So any of you can reach out to me that way. You can also find me on Facebook or Messenger under Sara Lypps. Again, SARALYPPS. Or those of you who like to text or call, feel free. I am completely transparent and available. My telephone number is 760-497-5821. And again, I welcome, the first 3 people who, take that leap of faith to just have a conversation with me. And, I promise you that, no judgment, but just to help to guide you in the right direction, that you can start taking those baby steps to really feel like you have, a hold and control of your finances. Because it can be really overwhelming, but it doesn't need to be, as long as, you're part of a team. And that's what April and I are here to invite you to be not only part of our team, to be part of a family, to just, again, help guide you in the right direction, so that this doesn't have to be so uncomfortable.
And it's not just about Sara doing this, but also look at her. Look at her. She's a shining example. Look at that. She's a shining example of a strong woman that's had to feel the fear and yet do it anyway. And I commend you, and I'm proud of you. And I'm going to see you soon. So Brains, I need you to do what you're supposed to do. Go and subscribe to everything, everywhere I am. LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. That's where our tribe resonates, because that's where the movers and shakers are. Innovators and money makers. All right, I'll talk to you again real soon. Thank you, Sara.
Thank you, April. God bless everyone.